guys. I hope you're all doing well. Today's video is going to be a recap and show and tell of some of the things that I picked up while I was gone on my trip. If you follow me on Twitter, you know that I recently went on a trip to Kentucky. And that wasn't the only state that I went to, but that was the main place. I've never been to Kentucky before. So I have a relative that had horses, and she recently just got rid of her last horse, so she has some free time now on top of working. And wanted to go on this vacation to Kentucky to go and see horse country, so I was invited to go along with her, and at first I was kind of reluctant, but in the end I decided to go because I figured it was an opportunity that I may not get again. So, and it was a chance to kind of spend some time with my relative. So we were gone Monday through Friday. We left Monday morning and came back Friday afternoon. Pretty much all day Monday was us driving to Kentucky. We drove obviously through Iowa since that's where I live, and then we drove through Illinois, and that's where we stopped and got lunch, and then drove through Indiana, which was the first time I'd actually been into Indiana, and then through the very, very corner of Ohio, and then down into Kentucky. We stayed in Lexington the first night. When we got there, it was probably almost like 9-10 o'clock, I think. So we pretty much got there and just found a hotel and went to bed. I only had like 3 hours of sleep the night before because I had packed last second. Plus, I swear the universe was telling me to not go on this trip with some issues that happened to arise days before I was supposed to leave. So I was very tired and ready to go to bed. So the first day, Tuesday, we drove from Lexington to Paris, Kentucky. We got breakfast at the Waffle House first, and that was the first time I'd ever eaten at a Waffle House since we don't have them here in Iowa as far as I know. And I didn't even get waffles. The food was okay. It wasn't amazing, but the atmosphere was really cool. I love like diners and stuff like that, and it was very much like everybody kind of knows each other and stuff, and so it was really nice. And like I said, the food was okay, and it was also the first place that I actually heard like an actual southern accent, so that was pretty cool. That might be stupid to some people, but it was interesting to me. But so we drove to Paris after we got breakfast, and the entire road that we took from Lexington to Paris was nothing but horse farms, and it was the coolest thing ever. Since, I had this relative that's had horses pretty much my entire life. I've been around horses pretty much my entire life. I don't know everything about horses, but I have had my fair share of interaction with them. So I love horses, and I would like to actually learn how to ride more and do more in riding. But so anyway, so we got to Paris, Kentucky, because we went there to go to Claiborne Farms. And for those of you that don't know what that is, it's a very famous horse farm. Secretariat is buried there, and that's where he stood the remainder of his life. Secretariat broke the streak of non-Triple Crown winners that was for like 20 some odd years. I think he finally broke the record and won the Triple Crown in the 70s. And by far one of the coolest racehorses ever. My relative's favorite racehorse. And so we went there because she wanted to So like I said, we went to Claiborne Farm. So this was the pamphlet that we got at the beginning. And this was the first page in the pamphlet, and it's about the stallions, obviously. And this is their breeding fees. So this was really interesting to me because their most expensive horse for a breeder is $200,000, which is crazy to me. And we actually did get to see this horse and take pictures with him and pet him. He was really cool. Unfortunately, well, I mean, it's not really that unfortunate, but for whatever reason, when he was brought out for us to take pictures with him, he decided that that was the perfect time to get a boner. So, a majority of the pictures that I have of him are him with his dick out. So, I don't know if anybody else noticed and was just being polite or mature, not saying anything, or if no one really just noticed, although I don't know how you could not notice, but I definitely noticed and was more laughing in my head because all I could think was, of course, at this point in time, you would do that, but, you know, whatever, the life of a horse. But, yeah, it was very cool. And then we met another one. So that one was Warfront, who was $200,000. And then the other one that we met was Orb, and he's $25,000. So they were very cool. We also got to see Blame, also $25,000, and we didn't actually get to take pictures with him and pet him and stuff, but the tour guide gave him a bunch of peppermints and then had him do a trick for us, which was kind of cute. So that was the beginning of our adventure. It was very cool. After we got done there, we went to the cemetery that's there and saw where Secretariat was buried amongst the other horses that are buried there. And from there, we went to the Kentucky Horse Farm, which I had never heard of. I mean, I'd never heard of any of these things really, but so we went there and spent quite a few hours there. We went to the American Saddlebred Museum. We went to the gift shop there, saw a bunch of the statues that were there, took a tour of the park inside, and just really got to see all kinds of stuff. We went through the other museum that was there, which was very cool. So we went to the American Saddlebred Museum, and then we also went to the International Museum of the Horse. So we got to see all kinds of stuff in the museum, which was really cool. We actually wound up kind of getting kicked out at the end because we were in there for so long and they were closing, which kind of sucked, but we covered a majority of it. We also went and saw a thing that's called the Hall of Champions, and they brought out a few different Kentucky Derby winners, and if I'm not mistaken, a Triple Crown winner, but I'm not positive, don't quote me on that. But overall, it was very cool. The place was huge. Here's the map. So yeah, that was really cool. And then also, this was the book that you get. It's like a biannual magazine, I think, that you had for the Kentucky Horse Park. This was my badge that I had to wear. And all kinds of stuff about the park and stuff. So after we did that, we headed to Louisville, Kentucky, and on the way there we stopped at the restaurant that I think was opened by Colonel Sanders and his wife, and the name is like his wife's name. So we went there to eat, and of course, just like at the Waffle House where I didn't get waffles, we went to this restaurant from essentially the beginnings of Kentucky Fried Chicken, and I didn't get chicken, but the food was really good, and I always have to tell this, but I love dinner rolls, and they had a really good dinner roll there, so I wish I knew the recipe for it, but, so yeah, that was cool. This is what the restaurant was in Louisville, or on the way to Louisville, Claudia Sanders Dinner House. That's where it was that we ate. So, and then we got to Louisville, and they were having a hot rod show going on, so we were having a hard time finding a hotel room, but we did finally find one, kind of on the outskirts of the downtown a little bit. So we stayed the night there, and then woke up the next morning because, of course, we were going to Churchill Downs, which is where the Kentucky Derby is. I would love to be able to go to the Kentucky Derby one day. Actually, I'd love to go to all 3 races one day. But we went to Churchill Downs, and we did I believe it's called the barn and back door, or backside, backyard tour. I don't remember. It's barn and back something. And it's in a 1-hour van tour. So we actually got to go to the backside of the track where all the stables are and see the horses back there and learn about the process and everything. So that was really cool. And then we went back to the museum and watched this 8-minute movie about the Kentucky Derby that was in the museum. And it was completely 360, which was pretty cool. And then after that, we went on the 30-minute walking tour and kind of went in and saw the stands, saw the track, learned a little bit more about the actual racetrack and all that stuff, so it was very cool. We went back to the museum and actually went through it this time, and I took so many pictures on this trip, but the museum was very cool, all about the Kentucky Derby, and of course there was some stuff about Secretariat there, and it was just really interesting. Here was the pamphlet for the Kentucky Derby Museum. Just information about it. One of the things too that we saw while we were there, which I thought was kind of cool, is there was a display all about like traditional Kentucky dishes, and they actually had the recipes on these plates in this display, but they had cards with the recipes on them, so even though I probably won't ever make them, I grabbed one of each anyway. So I have the recipe for this Benedictine, I think is how that's pronounced. Baby hot browns, which I'm assuming is like hash browns. Kentucky burgoo. They actually had that at the restaurant there at the museum, but I didn't get it. Cheese grits casserole. I had the opportunity to try grits at the Waffle House, but I didn't. I kind of passed up on the opportunity. And then lastly, Kentucky bourbon balls. If any of you have tried any of those, tell me in the comments and let me know what you think about them. The museum and all that stuff for Churchill Downs was very cool. I wound up spending a lot of time in the gift shop because I was trying to find stuff to give for people. So I got my dad a keychain from the museum. I got my mom a mug, and then I got myself a t-shirt, and I love it. It's really cool. I really like that shirt. I had a hard time finding something that I actually wanted because most of the stuff there had the Kentucky Derby date on it, and I was like, I wasn't there for that. I wasn't there to see the Kentucky Derby, so I don't want something that has the date on it that makes it seem as if I was there for it. I wanted something just to say that I had been to the racetrack and went through the museum and stuff, so that was what I found, and I loved it, and so I got it. Unfortunately, I don't have the keychain or the mug that I got my mom. yes, I have the same philosophy for this. I didn't get one in Illinois simply because Illinois is a neighbor to me. I can easily go to Illinois and get a keychain anytime, doesn't matter. I did get one for Indiana. I got this cool Indiana one. So I really like it. I would have got a keychain in Ohio, but we literally were in Ohio for maybe 10-15 minutes. It was such a short trip through there, so I didn't wind up getting one. And then I did get a keychain though in Kentucky, so this is the keychain that I got. So yeah, after we were done at Churchill Downs, we decided to head for St. Louis, because we went to Churchill Downs on Wednesday. Yeah, so after we were done at the racetrack, we drove to St. Louis, Missouri. Missouri is also another place that I'm like, I can go and get a keychain at any point. I don't need to get one now. So we went to St. Louis, and it took maybe 3 hours, I think, from Louisville. By the time we got there, it was like 7 something, I think. So we got there, and I've been through St. Louis before, so I have seen the Gateway Arch from afar. I'd never been up close to it. Well, this time I actually went up the Gateway Arch, which was very cool. I am normally absolutely terrified of heights, but for whatever reason, the Space Needle and the Gateway Arch, I was pretty calm, cool, and collected. But you put me on the 4th floor of the Mall of America, and I'm terrified. It's weird. So yeah, I went to St. Louis. We went up the Gateway Arch. My relative that I went with originally said she wasn't going to go because she had been on it before and didn't want to go up it, but at the very last second decided to go with me so I didn't have to go by myself, which I appreciated, but also at the same time I kind of wished that she wouldn't have, because they tell you it takes 4 minutes to get up to the top and 3 minutes to get back down to the bottom, so the total trip takes about 7 minutes. We were up there at the top for less than that, so I was kind of upset that I wasn't able to stay up there longer, but I didn't want to make her wait or go down by herself or anything. So here's my ticket for the Gateway Arch. I plan to go back with my fiance sometime and take him up there, and then we can actually spend more time looking and whatever. So but that was really cool. So we stayed in St. Louis for that night, and then the next morning on Thursday we went to Grant's Farm. Here's the brochure for Grant's Farm. Basically, Grant's Farm, it was originally owned by Ulysses S. Grant, and then I don't remember the entire story, but basically the Bush family, I think, bought it, and the Bush family makes Budweiser, and the Clydesdales are like the mascot of Budweiser, and so my relative wanted to go there because of the Clydesdales specifically. Now, for whatever reason, talking about the Clydesdales and Grant's Farm, I just assumed that there was going to be nothing but horses there, and it never dawned on me that it was an actual farm, and if anything, it was more like a zoo. It was really cool. We drove through and, did the tour and saw all these different animals and stuff, and it was just really interesting. And then at the very end, we went and saw the Clydesdales, which was cool, but kind of disappointing at the same time because we weren't really able to see them that much. But here's a picture of the Clydesdales and a map of the park. That was also like our ticket to get our pictures. And then another map. So we did that for a few hours, and then after that we drove went to Springfield and got there pretty early on in the day, in the afternoon, and went to his tomb and went through and saw where he was buried and all this stuff. When I went to high school, I went to Abraham Lincoln High School, so we actually had a bust of his head in our front hallway, and of course, if you know this, you rub Lincoln's nose for good luck, so a lot of us would do that before games or performances and stuff like that. So when we went to the tomb, there was a bust out in front that you could tell they encourage people to rub his nose. So they actually had a step stool for people to stand and rub his nose, and his nose was the only part that was like really quite cold because people rub it all the time. So it was pretty cool to go through there and see the tomb and everything. And this is the pamphlet for Lincoln's tomb. Filled with all kinds of information. I actually haven't looked at this yet. And then we went to the Abraham Lincoln Museum after that. So here's the pamphlet for the museum. And the museum was really interesting. I've never seen a museum set up the way that it was. You go in on one end once you get inside and go through the cabin, and that's depicting his life growing up and becoming an adult, and right before he becomes president. And then once he wins the presidency, you continue over to the other side of the museum and then go through the White House and learn all about his time in office and everything. So it was really interesting, very cool. Another place that I want to take my fiance back to. My fiance at one point was a political science and history major, so he's really big into that kind of stuff, so I know he would really enjoy it. So at the Lincoln Museum, if you also watched my Washington video, you'll see that my fiance and I have been collecting coins. So I got this really cool Abraham Lincoln coin. You can't see the back of it because I have to take the sticker off, but I want to make sure I can get it off all the way. And then also, I got these at Grant's Farm. This cool gold coin, and then one with the Clydesdales on them, and the same back. Those gold coins scratch really easily, so I have to wrap them up in tissue or something so that they don't scratch. So here's a map as well. That was a map about like all the different Lincoln stuff and cool things you could see in Springfield. So after we were done at the museum, we were there until it closed. We headed for Quincy, Illinois. At this point, I was kind of getting on my last, ring of patience, I guess is how I'm gonna put it. The trip overall was really cool and interesting, but there were aspects of it in between the cool stuff that I just was kind of had a short fuse and was trying to be really calm about everything, but it was kind of difficult because the person that I went with, my relative, was scaring the hell out of me with their driving, and it was kind of a tough situation because I was the one with the directions. I had to use my phone for GPS the entire time because she didn't really have the trip planned very well. So it was kind of a interesting situation, But, so we went to Springfield on Thursday. We all did that on Thursday. So after we were done at the museum, we drove from Springfield to Quincy, which was about an hour drive, if I'm not mistaken, an hour or two. And we got to Quincy and pulled into the city, and there were 2 hotels right off the bat. And I tried to tell her, like, oh, let's just go here, but she ignored me and kept driving. And after like a couple minutes, she goes, oh, I should probably turn around and just go back to those hotels, huh? And I was like, yeah, probably. And she continued to keep driving in the same direction for like another 10 minutes. And I was so irritated because by the time that she finally did turn around, we didn't remember where we had come in at. So we couldn't find the hotels that we originally saw. So once we got to a specific street, there was a motel, and this is a river city, so it was like right on the river. There was a motel, and she immediately was like, okay, we'll go here. And I looked at this place and was like, oh no, this is a janky ass motel. We should not be staying here. The vehicle that we took was brand new, and I do not like to judge people by how they look. I think it's very wrong, but by their behavior, the way that they were dressed and stuff, I was just scared because it did not look like a safe place to be. So my relative went in, got us a room, and then came back out. Well, for other hotels and stuff, you know, the office is normally, or the front desk is normally attached to where the rooms are. Well, in this case, the rooms were in a building behind where the office was, and I had to explain this to my relative, and she stood outside for like a good 10 minutes trying to figure out why on earth the rooms were not attached to the office. And finally, she was like, well, you're gonna go in and find out for sure. And that didn't wind up happening because as we got closer, she realized that I was right. So we went to go and check out the room. Well, first off, she handed me the keys, and I still have the card keys, or key cards. And this was the sleeve that they were in. For your safety, always use deadbolt, secure valuables, report suspicious persons or acts, never open door prior to verifying ID. And I read this and was like, if that's not a red flag, then I don't know what is. When we found our room, it was on the ground level, which made me nervous. I had to kick the door open basically because it was jammed shut so hard. So we went in, checked out the room, and it wasn't too bad, but I still was not keen on staying there. I really didn't want to, but she was insistent that it would be fine. So we went and left and got food, and then came back, brought in our belongings. I was extremely cautious and aware of our surroundings because I was so paranoid. We got into the room, locked everything up, and tried to go to sleep basically. And I think I kind of sort of slept for maybe an hour at first, and then I woke up because there were people there with their little kids, and the little kids were screaming. And then the hours went by, and then there were people getting into fights outside and yelling and cussing, and I was just like, oh god, this is not good. And then it started to get really, really windy and start raining, and I don't do well with like severe weather when I'm not at home. It's just always a things, but some of the stuff in between wasn't super great. But yeah, so I hope that you enjoyed this very long-winded ramble and small show and tell about my trip.